Hey everyone, this is Ferdinand over here. Today I'll be taking us through how we can work with virtual machines or in virtualization in brief. So I'll be taking you through how we can install a virtual machine and then how we can install different operating systems. That's to say we are going to install the Windows operating system and then the Ubuntu and how we can install application on them. So to start with, when we're installing our virtual machine, first we go to the web browser that is any of your preference, whether Edge or so. In this case, I'm using Google Chrome. So we are going to go to Google Chrome and then we shall be typing. You type like download, Oracle VirtualBox. In that case, I'm using the one from Oracle. So you'll type download Oracle VirtualBox into the search bar. And then automatically, mine have been having a lot of search history. So you'll go with the first item that will automatically pop up there. In that case, we are seeing there. And then you're going to select like the Windows host. In this case, I'm using a Windows PC, but you can choose based on the type of the PC you're using. And then after selecting Windows host, you will check in the download folder. As in, of course, there is that one up there, that drop down icon showing the where your apps are. So it will automatically go into the downloads folder on your local computer, and then you select and double click. So once you double click, you'll see something like this or some pop-ups, which and then after here you'll be able, you just follow the next option to install the Oracle. Of course, here my application is installed. So in this case, you'll just continue going next until you finish the setup. Of course, you'll just accept the terms for the licenses, and then of course you proceed still next. Here we are installing our virtual machine or the virtual box. In this case, what we are doing now is the virtual box. So to go to the next, we need to make sure that we have installed the right applications we need. So once more, we shall go to our Google Chrome, and then from Google Chrome, we shall be able to download the ISO files. That is the Windows. We are starting with the Windows. So when you click on, you select, of course, it's advisable to download from the Microsoft Store. So you just click on the first one which pops up and then download. Now we can do the same with Ubuntu. But for this case, I have already downloaded mine. I'm just showing this just for the sake of like getting us know. So you select the release of Ubuntu of your preference to download, and then after getting it downloaded, version of your preference based on your machine choice and whatever you're going to do with it. So VirtualBox, then you need to download the ISO file. So you need to check open your virtual machine. So when you open your virtual machine, what are we going to do? We're having new project, then we have open. So in this case, what you're going to do is you'll click on new because you're creating a new virtual machine. And then in this case, we want to create a Microsoft Windows virtual machine. So you're going to rename your virtual machine and everything, and then go through settings, you configure, you put your passwords, and whatsoever, you allocate the right memory for your machine. And then after summary of my memory whereby I've allocated. Then what is going to be next is installation. Of course, you will start with the installation, and then setup will start. It takes a little bit of time, and then you need to select whether you have the Windows activation or not. In this case, I don't have, because I'm just doing it for practice. I'm going to select the right Windows I want. In this case, I want Windows 10 Education, 64, Windows 10 Pro. You select. Yeah, I went with the Windows 10 Pro. Then I'll click next. So just basically, you accept the terms of licenses. So these are some instructions during installation. So just go next. In this case, we are not upgrading. We are doing custom installation because we're installing a new window. We are not upgrading any window. Remember, we are dealing with a virtual machine. So there is a compatibility port, like the upgrade isn't available if you start your computer, something like that. So yeah. So we're going with custom. Remember, there is file storage which I had already allocated. I allocated 50 GB for Windows because it needs a lot of storage space. So we are going to proceed with our installation. Of course, it is copying files and it will take a little bit of time. So let's jump forward to the installation getting done. So Windows is preparing, and of course it will restart in a few. So after that, immediately we are going to restart our Windows. So here we are restarting. So the VirtualBox will open. Of course, it is still loading up. For a moment, our Windows is loading. Of course, all these steps take a little bit of time. Just you need to be patient and then wait as everything gets ready. The files are being unpacked and it's getting installed. The system is getting installed. Of course, like I said, this is the Windows. And remember, we are going to do 2 installation, both Windows and Ubuntu. So we are yet in the first phase. So our Windows loaded up. We are going to select the region where you're from. For my case, I'm from Uganda. So it can base on the region where you're from. Then the keyboard, I'm familiar with the UK. So I don't want to go with setting of the layout. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes to make you know how this works around. And of course, configurations and setup is taking place. So please, of course, there will be on window instructions which you can be reading. And then this as well takes a little bit of time. So you need to be very patient while doing this. And of course, we are done with that. Then how do you want to set up your computer, whether for personal use or for an organization? In this case, I'm just putting it for personal use. But based on your use case, you can choose whatever is appropriate for your use case. Then you need to add an account. Of course, here my keyboard had some issues. Of course, I had to clear around until it stabilizes. Maybe if you don't have an existing account, of course, you can check the option for creating an account. But for this case, I'm having an existing account. So, or else you're creating a new account. I decided to create a new account. So I've put in the email and then I'm putting in the password. And then, of course, these are just settings around you'll put your date of birth, select what is appropriate. In this case, I'm just using something, for trial purposes, the contacts, the email. So these are for security purposes. Of course, they as well ask you a couple of security questions, which you'll be able to respond to. And then you're going to the next phase. So here, of course, these are just basic settings. You can choose privacy settings for your devices, what you want, how you want, to experience Windows and everything. So basically, you just check what you feel like, you need for your system or how best you'll be using the system. So from there, we are going to the next phase. Of course, our Windows has loaded, so it's like, hi. So everything is getting done in a few. Of course, this is not something which is just done in seconds. It takes time, but you just need to be patient. And then, so we're almost there. Then, of course, our Windows has loaded. So we're able to install our Windows 10. So let's try to go to the next assignment. We said we're supposed to be able to, install what? An application. So we're going to do some just basic settings. We are signing to sync. Of course, we are starting with Google. We are signing with Google data. So I'm just going to use my personal details for this. So these are just, logging in like into your Gmail and whatsoever. And then automatically when you're logging into your Google, depending on whatever, you can do the 2-factor. So we have confirmed and we are starting browsing. At the moment, we're using Edge, which is default. So now we want to download. So we have searched a Chrome download. Here's a download for Chrome. Then now we are able to download. We're downloading using what? Using Edge. Of course, you're starting download. You click on start download. And then on start download, download once it is finished up there. And then we shall click and open. We shall, double click so that we are able to carry on the setup of the Chrome. And then after doing the setup, of course, the installer will bring some notification. The installation process will take place as we are seeing on the screen. And then after the installation, it will take some little time. When it is done, of course, we can see a Chrome is there. So we can sign into Chrome, just like you can see. These are basic settings, just like the similar ones I was doing before. So there is two-factor authentication or two-step verification using your device. Then I'm using Chrome as my default. Here I've decided to set it Chrome. So basically we are done with the first one from installing up to here. I'm just trying to use the notepad, the WordPad, which is one of the default text editor. So we are going to now go to the next where we are creating our machine. Then we have created, here we are going to do Linux. So we are setting the base memory. I've given myself there. So these are basically settings for the Linux. And then, of course, it will start. Some few stuffs will run to work around with Linux. Basically, you need to work around in the terminal. So I've been able to open my terminal here. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to install an application. In this case, I want to install a code editor, which is VS Code. Okay, so here our Linux is open. Of course, it's starting some updates. It's preparing Ubuntu welcome. You need to do some few settings, of course. The language I'm going to use will be English, accessibility. I'm just going next because I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. And then keyboard, we are choosing UK in this case, just like in the Windows. And then we are going to the next. We want to use wired connections. Of course, we want to use the internet. So I'm not interested in updating. So I'm just going to skip this for now. And then I don't want to install. I just want to try. I'm going to close. So here, our Ubuntu is open. So I'm going to run some basic command to, in the first place, update. So I want to do, sudo apt update. And then, so basically this is a command for updating the system. In the first place, I want to start by updating the system before I install anything. So here I'm updating my system. This is a command which is used to update the system. So here my system will update. Of course, it will take some couple of time. And then here my system is done. Now, what I'll be doing next is I need to install the IDE which I want to be using. In this case, I want to install a VS Code. So I'm going to do sudo snap install code classic. So I'll run this. So just like you're seeing it on the screen, that's exactly how you're supposed to do. So it will run, and then after finishing, okay, it's still installing. So we can see our Visual Studio Code has been installed successfully. So we have our application installed. Now, when we want to run the application, we're going to type code and then be able to run the application. So basically, that has been a step-by-step procedure from installation of our virtual box to creating virtual machines, and then installing the Windows OS, installing an application into it, and then installing, of course, the Linux, that is to say the Ubuntu, and then how we can install application using the terminal or commands, and then a couple of more. So stay tuned, for more around this, whereby we are able to do what? We shall be in position to go deeper into how best we can use the applications onto these devices, especially with the Linux terminal. So keep hooked onto this channel for more updates. Thank you so much for watching, and hope we catch up later.